Hello there and welcome. This is Business Connections Live. I'm Steve Hyland. This is Business Connections Live number 9. Hey, we've done it for 9 weeks and every week is getting better and better. Welcome along to the programme. Boy, have we got a real cracker for you all lined up tonight. Really something else. With me this evening, I've got Mark Pearson. He's Chief Executive of Surrey Connects. Mark, good to have you with us. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
For joining us. I know you're a big supporter of the programme, and you were with us just prior to us launching the show when we were telling you all about it, and you showed some real enthusiasm then. So thank you for being here.
Delighted to be able to join the programme, and delighted to see the success that you've already had in the first 9 weeks.
Well, it's gone really well and it's been fantastic. The feedback that we've had has been marvellous. But I mustn't be rude because we have another guest with us as well this evening. Standing at the very last moment, but my word, what a guy it's turned out to be. We've already been talking for about an hour. Check out the glasses, check out the wristwatch. Tom Higgins, he's the CEO of Gold Eye. It's great to have you with us, Tom. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
It's lovely to be here.
Just before we go any further, Kate Lester from Diamond Logistics was meant to be on the programme tonight, but she has unfortunately been taken ill, so we wish her a really speedy recovery, and our thanks to Wigwam PR for providing Tom Higgins from Gold Eye to appear with Mark Pearson this evening. Once again, Kate, we do hope you do get well very quickly, and we look forward to having you on the programme in the very near future. And on the show next week as well, just a little bit of a reminder, backed by popular demand, we've got Steve Mills. He's the guy that was telling us all about LinkedIn, a cracking programme. If you want to find out more from the prudent marketeer with more hints and tips on LinkedIn, then next week is the place to be. But tonight, we've got a really interesting programme. We're going to be talking about Surrey Connects. What's Surrey Connects? Now, the programme isn't targeting Surrey, but there are going to be organisations around your area, around your neck of the woods, that will have or will be doing exactly the same kind of things that Surrey Connects are doing. Surrey Connects are trying to get businesses to work together. They're trying to build the economic community, and they're trying to say, actually, in Surrey, it's a great place to have a business. If you're in Surrey, there are a lot of things going on, and let's make Surrey a central hub when it comes to business. And that's all businesses, from IT all the way through to the soft skills as well. And we'll be finding out more about that, and also how the success of Surrey could maybe influence the success of your particular area as well. And the other thing that we're going to be looking at, well, of course, it's Tom from Gold Eye. And Gold Eye, a fascinating company. It's all about trading, isn't it? That's what we're going to be talking about with you. But really the starting of your business and how you got from being a one-man band to where Gold Eye is today.
It's been an amazing journey, and I like talking about it because anyone can do it. It's just you have to believe in yourself and then you can do it.
So we're not actually going to be talking about trading, but we're going to be talking about the processes of building a business
Absolutely.
From scratch and getting it moving. It really is going to be one heck of a show. So thank you very much for joining us for the next 60 minutes. Surrey Connects, Gold Eye, Mark and Tom, and myself, Steve Hyland. Now, last week we had a cracking show as well, for that matter. We were looking at some of the things that you needed to do when it comes to communicating with your customers on a daily basis. It's a difficult job. How do you collect names? How do you grow lists? Unless you've got a specialist industry, when people come to your website, what do you tell them about your business, and how do you continue communicating with them on an ongoing business or on an ongoing basis? Well, that's what we talked about last week on Business Connections Live. One of the biggest problems I think that small businesses have, or any business for that matter, is getting in contact and staying in contact with their customers. That's one of the problems, but how do you go about collecting their names? How do you send out newsletters to tell them what your business is doing? How do you write compelling words that will make people want to stick with you, even just to read your copy? How do you go about doing that? Well, we're going to have all the answers for you this evening. I've got two fantastic guests with me tonight. Live here in the studio, I've got Steve Bridger. He's the author of Startup Business. Steve, hello. Great to have you with us tonight. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Yeah. You're live here in the studio. Obviously, I can reach out and touch you. Pinch me, I'll bleed.
I am alive.
You are alive, but only just, I can promise you. And in North Somerset, I do believe, we've got the fine Matthew Ruddle, Customer Service Director for InTouch CRM. Hi, Matthew. How are you tonight?
Not too bad, thanks, Steve. So our system basically allows people to take that information that they gain from their websites and that business event, and then actually make use of it. So send out great looking email communications that are all manageable and trackable, so you know what's working and what's not working, and you can track that success. And that's essentially what we help customers do.
The thing is, you've got the technology, you've got the functionality, but of course what I would do, and in terms of the things which really gives you a total rounded package, is then looking at, if you like, the conviviality of it all. So you've got the functionality, the conviviality. And what I mean by that is how approachable you are, what messages you put across, using the right sort of tone of voice, the right language, saying the things that people, want to hear. And it's all about, if you like, translation. And the job that needs to be done is, if you like, translating what people or businesses want to say into what people want to hear.
Oh, definitely. I mean, some of our customers really use the tool well. I mean, they are extremely creative. They can write quirky emails that really touch base, because as Steve said, it's a human approach, and that's where things like personalization really come into it. But you've got to forget the mechanism almost of how it's being sent out, and just remember that it's still you communicating with the customer.
Well, the first thing I say to people is it's not Shakespeare. You can't overcomplicate things. You can't actually suddenly go into some sort of great prose using great technical language. You've got to do something that, even though, the skill of it is to talk about something which is technical, which is perhaps difficult, and to put it in a way that people can actually understand. And so it's as the writer, and as the people who are doing something, you are the messenger. You're the eros, if you like, and you've got to think about not what you do, but how it's actually going to be received.
Give us a minute or so on what is key about coming to your business and why it is key about talking to you to get certain that you get the right product to build my business and customer list. Away you go.
Yeah. So, we offer a full service. At the end of the day, it's not just buying into our system, which is cheap as chips and very manageable, but you also get access to us and all the great resources that we build, so you can pick our brains and you can ask us to look over your campaigns and your website and suggest different things for you. So we can help walk you through that whole process of catching that passive traffic from your website, putting it into the system, all automatic, so you don't have to worry about anything, and then actually helping you build that sales process and those automated emails, and that almost a marketing strategy where you can then start to really engage with people on a one-to-one basis without actually sending out those one-to-one emails. You could be communicating with hundreds of people within one click and finding out that core information of who's opening your email, who's clicking links, what time of day should you be communicating with people. So you get all this food for thought that you can then take a step back, look at it with us as well, and we can guide you and say, well, actually, let's start segmenting your database. Let's start really targeting people on their behavior and what they're doing with your communications to get success.
First of all, most importantly, it's not about you, it's about them. And what you should be thinking about is what it is that you've got that people want to hear about, what they want to work on, what is actually going to be really persuasive to them. Absolutely crucial. And remember that when you're putting this together, you have to pitch it in the right way. So whoever you are talking to, make sure that you understand the niche that you're talking to, the people that you want to actually influence, convert, whatever you want them to do. It is a question of getting inside their heads. And one thing that you really want to do is, at all costs, avoid the word being passionate about everything. I don't know if you've noticed that at the moment everybody's saying, oh, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about that, I'm passionate about vegetables, I'm passionate about that, our company is so passionate about it. Everybody goes, what you're really about is you're passionate about making money. So try to avoid that and sort of do it in the way that you could say that, right, I'm passionate about, life or interesting stuff, and that's what you really want. You want to actually be people about developing their business and their way that they should be doing it.
Fantastic show last week, and I hope you got a lot of advice out of that when it comes to setting up autoresponders and getting your newsletters out and maybe getting your emails out. At the end of the day, this is all about communicating with your customer. Time and time again, you see businesses who just really don't get that right. With me this evening, we've got Mark Pearson, Chief Executive, Surrey Connects, and Tom Higgins, the CEO of Goldeye. The two businesses very different. One is looking at trying to help businesses in the Surrey area, trying to actually make them grow and trying to make Surrey an area of excellence. And Tom is going to be talking about how he took an idea and then grew it into a business that really is a multi-million pound business now.
It is now, yes it is, yeah.
And it's only, how many years has it taken?
5 years we've been going.
So it just goes to show you that it can be done, regardless of where you're starting right now today. Do you have the mentality to maybe step back for a moment, identify something that you can do, and then move forward with it? We'll find out some of the secrets and some of the techniques, perhaps, that Tom used over those years. But let's kick off, first of all, with Mark Pearson. Mark, Surrey Connects, just having a quick swig of water there.
Quite.
A straight chin, it can't beat it, can you?
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Surrey Connects.
Okay.
For those people that don't know what Surrey Connects is about, what do you do?
We're an organisation that sets very long-term strategy and very long-term vision for Surrey, the county, Surrey, the place. There's actually a need for organisations such as ours, and we are unique in terms of the county, to be able to look at all of those facets that make up an economy. Whether it's transport, whether it's skills, whether it's housing issues, all of those sort of issues that actually ultimately affect a business. So have you got the right people with the right skills to come and work for you? Is there the right accommodation for them to live in? Is it affordable, which we know is an issue across the county? Are things like broadband in place? So we're one of the organisations who prompted the County Council to go for 100% coverage of superfast broadband. A lot of those things which people take for granted on a daily basis, well, there's actually organisations like mine behind the scenes in many respects, working out how these things are going to affect people not only this month, next year, but 10, 20 years into the future. So our overall vision is actually to double the size of the Surrey economy. It might be our vision, but it's actually people like Tom who are going to ultimately deliver that. Those are the sort of things that we do.
But it's a big job, isn't it? And the thing that's important about it too is that it's just not unique to Surrey. I mean, Surrey's got it is an affluent area in the southeast, but there are a lot of areas across the country that are experiencing and suffering from the same kind of things holding them back.
Correct. And the government created 2 or 3 years ago local enterprise partnerships that actually work on different boundaries. I mean, business doesn't actually see an administrative boundary. Business can operate anywhere, can sell to any part of the country, any part of the globe, as long as its product is valid in those markets. Where we're trying to influence local enterprise partnerships, we're trying to shout Surrey's corner. Yes, as you've said, Surrey is very affluent, but we need to make sure that investment comes in terms of road infrastructure. And we're unblocking those infrastructure issues as opposed to perhaps money going to other parts of the country. There's an element of competition there.
Are you a proactive organisation that actually gets things done, or are you an organisation that lobbies and expects other people to do it?
Very good question, because depending on the subject, sometimes we lobby others. There's the superfast broadband a case in point. Other times we take direct action. So a couple of weeks ago we launched a brand new service to attract new companies to the area. It's called Invest in Surrey, and it's a web portal so that people can gain information about the key sectors, the key growth areas, a whole raft of information on there. So horses for courses. Sometimes we're proactive, sometimes we lobby, sometimes we facilitate actions, and other times we're the catalyst for things as well.
I mean, we'll come back and we'll talk more about Surrey Connects in just a moment and find out the actual core things that we're talking about and the concrete things that businesses can do when it comes to connecting with
Very
you.
much so.
Which is really what this is all about. If I'm a small business, what do I come to you and what do I ask for? And what are the right things to be asking for?
Sure.
Let's talk about a business that has actually, over a number of years, has actually turned into something that's been a real success. I mean, it's great to have you with us, Tom Higgins from Goldeye. Just first of all, explain a little bit about what the business is all about and what you do, because it sounds a little James Bond to me, if you don't mind me saying.
It's called a niche business, so it's very, very specialist. But and there are not many companies in the world that do what we do. There's probably two, one in Boston and us here.
Excellent. That's the kind of market
which
you're
is a
looking
nice
for,
thing.
isn't it?
It's a nice thing to do. It's a niche business, and niche is good. I used to think niche wasn't good, but now I know niche is good because other people can't do what you do. What we do is we write software, and our software connects retail brokers, they're a bit like stockbrokers, but in foreign exchange, to banks. That's the fundamentals of our software. So it's enabling the connection of one company to another company. So when the clients of the first company deal, those transactions are automatically passed through to the banks. Again, it is very specialist business. It has to be very high speed. So when I talk about our business, I often show a video of how the stock exchange started. And they're boasting that they did, I think, 1,000 transactions in 2 hours. We could do now maybe 10,000 transactions in 1 second. So the scale of the business is absolutely massive. The size, the numbers involved are extreme as well. The daily transactional volume that goes through not just our business, but lots of businesses in foreign exchange is around $5 trillion.
Gee whiz.
So just lots of noughts.
I mean, we're talking about serious money
Serious
here.
money.
Does that ever leave you with sleepless nights when you're thinking that the product that you've developed and your team has put together is now responsible for the control and the manipulation of that kind of money, those sums? Is there always this kind of feeling that, well, I won't sleep tonight just in case it all goes horribly wrong?
When I set up the business, there was just me. So there's one person, me. I remember the day I came into the office, my first office in the Surrey Technology Centre in the Research Park. I was sitting there, nothing there. I had no business. It was quite relaxing because I had no clients. And then the phone rang really quite quickly, actually. After about an hour I was in there. I don't know how somebody got my number, but they rang me and said, would I do some consulting work for them? And it sort of started there, and then the client base built up. And once you have a few clients under your belt, you do start thinking, I'm quite responsible for what these guys are doing. And initially, it's just you. You are the marketing, you are the sales, you're the software developer, you're the support, and everywhere you go, your phone is attached to you because they may ring. It's a 24-hour business. Trading doesn't stop. But after a while, you build a team. So now I have a team of 21 people underneath me. I have an operations manager who's fantastic. I have a new business development manager who's managing the sales. So gradually, I can relax more and I can concentrate on running the business and growing the business.
So what were the big problems then initially when you were kicking it off? Was the support infrastructure there from organisations? First of all, were the banks helpful? Were there people there that you could talk to for advice? I mean, what were the big problems initially? You can't just start a business and then for it just to grow, surely you can't, can you?
It's difficult. I wish Surrey Connects was there when I'd started. There were a few, I'm not sure which ones I spoke to, I can't remember the names of them, but they would say, go away until you've been operating for 3 years. And then come back and then we'll help you with your problems. I don't need you in 3 years, I need someone now. You know, when you start a business, when you've never run a business before, you don't know how tax works, you don't know how PAYE works, you don't know how VAT works, you don't know how anything works because you've never done it. And so those sort of things, you know, you learn. And one of the things I actually did, and I met Kate Lester on, was the Entrepreneur Circle, which is an interesting organisation where it's for small companies and like-minded people get together and you discuss business issues. And you learn how people do things. You learn how sales work, how marketing works, and it helps you. I found that was really useful when I was a bit smaller, but after a while I needed something a bit bigger, so I joined Vistage, which is a much bigger organisation and for bigger companies like us now, and really useful. And that ability to discuss with other people has been essential.
You know, it's fascinating because the Entrepreneur Circle does come up on a regular basis. Nigel Bottrell is an amazing bloke, and there's no two ways about it. Well, he started, 3 or 4 £1 billion or £1 million businesses, so he really does know his onions. He's very good at franchising, he's very good at showing and explaining to people exactly what it's all about. I can see what you mean as well by the fact that there is a scale that he will take you to, and then you move on from him. But it is a kind of a push, it is a kind of a direction. Initially, have you come across Nigel Bottrell?
I've come across Nigel, yes. And I think for firms to plug into those sort of networks, You asked a moment ago the sort of things that we do, and I'd encourage businesses to get involved in those local networks. There's a huge number of networks out there, whether they're chamber-based, whether the BNI, whether the Visage, etc. And there's always help out there. And actually, sometimes the best advice that you get is from fellow businesses, because by and large, a business has been there before, they've experienced a similar problem. And often it's not jargon, it's actually straightforward talking that people will help you. And I've found over the years that actually people like talking about their businesses.
Yeah.
And people like saying, we had that problem, this is how we got over that. So part of our role is to make sure that it says it in the name, connects, but making those connections and making sure that people plug into networks.
If Tom was starting today,
Yes.
and he was looking for that advice, would he be knocking on your door? And what would be the questions, if he was knocking on your door, you'd be expecting him to be asking?
I think I'd very much be expecting him to ask about property. Where's he going to base his business? Is he operating from the back bedroom? Is he operating from the garage? As Tom's already said, he started in the technology centre on the research park in Guildford. Issues about finance, issues about where to find staff, issues about, I've had the questions, where do I get a desk and a chair from? The very basic things. Through to more detailed activity in terms of business plan, marketing plans, finance issues. So you often get a whole raft of different issues, different perceived problems. They're not actually problems. They're all things that can be overcome. And often it's a case of pointing people in the right direction. We used to have...
But can you actually give solid advice then? I mean, do you have a list that says, okay, you're coming to me you're asking about properties, here's a list of people you can go to talk about properties within a particular price scale or whatever?
We've got that. I mean, we've recently launched Invest in Surrey. Part of that is actually a property search facility. So somebody could come to us, ask for whatever the size they're looking for, whether it's a 200 square foot office up to 100,000 square foot, so we can supply that information.
You see, that's interesting, because my perception has always been, to a certain extent, that it was nearly the academic side, it was the academia, it was the, thinking about business, as opposed to the actual doing about business. Yeah. And I never realised that that's exactly what Surrey Connects does.
Well, this is the balance between where we actually intervene and provide a service that's not being provided, through to the more longer term strategic thinking that we do as well. So there's always a flip between those 2 points, and it's always quite interesting, because I go to a vast number of events, a vast number of networking events every month, and the conversations that you have with every business
are the same.
Often boil down to the same issues. We've recently launched a business network, the Surrey Business Leaders Network, which, if I'm honest, is about the larger companies across the county who
You're involved with that, aren't you? You're going to that.
Oh, we're not involved with that at the moment, but that's something we're going to start being involved in. Yes.
We're rolling that out at the moment.
You are now.
You are now. But that's actually about sitting businesses down, for whether they're large businesses or small companies or smaller companies. And you can sit down with 8 businesses, all from different sectors, and their issues are all the same, or very, very similar. They have transport issues, they have recruitment issues. And actually suddenly you realise that discussion around the table, and they would think, well, what as an accountant have I got in common with a leading edge IT company? Have I got in common with a large multinational? Actually, those issues are often very, very similar. Often they're minor blockages that they see, well, how do we solve these? Part of my role on the more strategic thinking side of things is to take those away, speak to different networks and say, well, how do we solve those?
It's interesting. I mean, from what you've heard there, is that the kind of information and support you needed when you started your business, do you think?
Absolutely. I wish I had it, because when you start a business, you have a brilliant idea. So if it's your first business, which this was for me, you have a brilliant idea and you know everything about that, but you don't know anything about how to construct the business itself. You have ideas. And you actually worry about the wrong things.
Yes.
You worry about, how am I going to pay my VAT? How do I employ people? how do I get internet? How do I do the email? Where do I sit? How much do I pay in rent? What is rent? What I pay per square foot, is that per year, per month? There's so many things that you would assume that you know the answer to, because you've never done it, you don't know. And we got help from the Surrey Technology Centre, but that's really on the property and the facilities and the email and the catering. I mean, they're a really nice catering place there from the Caper and Berry people, and they feed us every day, which we love. That keeps me happy. So, but if we could have had a whole suite of things, so you need to do this, then I can concentrate on running my business and building that, and not worry about all those other things. And that would have been absolutely fantastic. So if a friend came to me now and said, I want to start a business, which people do sometimes, you know, we give advice to people, just friends, I would definitely send them your way, because that's exactly what they need.
And it's plugging them then people into the right networks.
And it seems that the whole network idea seems to be is the thing that's important. It's businesses talking to businesses, because everybody does, I suppose, across the business scale. Everybody's probably got a solution somewhere.
Yes.
From your point of view, then, what was the first big initial issue that came along?
It was property. Where do we put ourselves? I didn't want to work from home, because I thought if I'm at home, you're in a different mindset, you're in a different space. I mean, we've got 4 children now, we had 3 then, running around all over the place, and it distracts you. So having a unit you can go to, I mean, the great thing about a service unit like the Technology Centre is you can have something really small, and then next month you get bigger and bigger, and we've changed about 5 times now, because we go bigger and bigger and bigger. So the first issue was, where do I put myself? And I did a bit of research, and I looked on the net, and I found there were a number of commercial properties where they were giving you serviced offices, but they're really expensive. And they're really inflexible. And we went to one, I remember, I won't say it is because it would embarrass them. And they said, the managing director showed me around, and he said, this is the kitchen, we have tables in here so you can have coffee. If I see you having a meeting in here, I will throw you out, because you've got to pay for a meeting room.
That's not very conducive to business, though, is it?
I didn't
stay.
use that. I said, thank you very much, that's not going to work. Then I went to the Technology Centre, and they couldn't be nicer. If you want a meeting in the kitchen, in the canteen, you have a meeting in the canteen. And it just made so much difference. And I think taking all those worries away was great. But if I could have been given a toolkit of all the other bits and pieces, which I've now found out how to do. You know, I know how to do the accounts because I have an accountant and I can read them. I know how to do marketing. I found through what we coined a term, MummyNet.
Now, you were talking to me about this. It seems very interesting in as much as that you're actually, in a way, giving a grown-up version of flexible hours, aren't you?
Yeah, we realised that there were women who had families. Before they had their families, they may have been employed in a large company with a senior position, and they were very, very skilled. They'd leave, have their families, and then want to go back to work, because sometimes they were bored, and they've got all this experience, all this knowledge, all these skills, and it was being wasted. And so we started, first of all, with a bookkeeper. And so she would come after she dropped her children at school, work for us, and then leave a bit early and collect her children from school. And that is fantastic in quite a lot of areas of business. So for the accounts, the bookkeeping, HR, we now do the same. And you can extend this across the board. And there are so many areas where it doesn't matter whether you work a shorter day, you just do more of it, or you'll have more people. And the people you get are so skilled, they're happy because they're working and they're employed, and it works really well. Really pleased with that approach.
So you see, what I now do is take that information from Tom, and I will share that with probably every business that I meet over the next month. Because actually, for business to think, I've got to employ somebody, I need a bookkeeper, I've got to that point where I need a bookkeeper. And the immediate thing is, well, I might have to have them full time. Well, actually, no, you can have them for the time that you need, and you can have that flexibility. That's a very powerful story.
Do the pair of you find at the moment that there is a bit of resistance from businesses who actually should be employing somebody else but aren't employing somebody else because of the red tape, because of the problems that you may get if it doesn't work out and you've got to move on? I mean, do you come across those kind of problems?
Occasionally, I'll come across those kind of problems. Often, I don't. People won't share that because they think they've got a problem and they'll keep that inside. Where actually, if they said, "Actually, I've got this problem," somebody will go, "Well, this is how we can sort that out." And it's interesting because where people have got flexible working, actually that works very well for everybody these days. You know, we've moved from perhaps a even over the last 25, 30 years, from potentially fairly draconian ways of working, where people needed to come in and be seen at their desks every day, to more flexible working. You know, the technology, we've got the technology that some people have on their wrists.
Yes,
you know.
indeed. Not showing off at all. Not showing off at all.
But you know, that's using that as an example. That's just one way where technology has come forward in a very short space of time. That was science fiction 25 years ago.
It was science fiction 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
This came out 2 weeks ago. This was science fiction last month.
What we're talking about here is that Tom's actually got, you may have read about it in the technical press. Can you just hold it up a little bit? That's right. It's gone off for a second.
I'll just press the button.
There we
and wake
go.
it up.
No, it's gone off again.
It's
not very reliable, is it?
It's
Every time you
it's detecting that I'm moving and it's turning itself off.
You should see the battery.
Yeah. Yes, he's got a battery pack on the floor here. What's actually happening is he's got a smartphone, and the smartphone is connected to his watch. And if a text message or email comes in, it comes up on the watch.
Yeah, it comes up and so I can see who it's from, and then if I tap it, it will then appear on my phone and I can read it, or I can read the first few lines on my phone.
And of course, the thing that's important about that is it means that if you're in a meeting, and particularly with the industry that you're in as well, you can very quickly, you can just pick up, is it an urgent text message? Is it an urgent email? It's clever technology, and of course it's technology like that is changing businesses today, isn't it?
Exactly, and you know the sort of work that we've done to make sure that we're going for 100% coverage of superfast broadband. People will say, well, I've got that technology, but you actually need the wiring, you need the technology behind the scenes to make that happen.
Reliable 4G would be quite nice.
Reliable 4G, but if you look at some of the activity that's going on with the University of Surrey at the moment, they're actually looking at 5G. So they're looking at forward, you know, that next 10, 15 years for that next level of technology. So some of the stuff that's going on within the county is absolutely remarkable. So the stuff that was actually on a workbench perhaps 5 years ago in terms of that technology has got to come from somewhere. And that's one of the fascinating things about Surrey and Surrey's business community, is that innovation is happening all over, and our research establishments are actually getting on and delivering that.
Well, of course, you've been on the technology park, means that you've got very close connections with the university, don't you?
Yes, we do.
And you were telling me that when it comes to bringing in those new skills, that you deal directly with the university. So just tell us a little bit more about how you bring people in to your business who are maybe on university courses at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, we have a policy of not employing senior people unless we absolutely have to. So we have a strong senior management team, and then when we bring in new people, we employ juniors. Now, we wanted to do this for a number of reasons. First of all, we're so near the University of Surrey, we have access to an awful lot of people. And the University of Surrey engineering courses and software courses are fantastic. So the people are extremely highly skilled. They're lower salary because it's their first job, which is good for a starting company. You know, you don't want to pay enormous amounts. They will generally they'll stay with you longer because they're learning. So their first job, they're pretty keen. So they're very keen to work hard with you. And often they live near. One of the problems that we found is if we are looking at employing people and they live in London and they're commuting to us in Surrey, they might be drawn by London and go to there. That problem goes away when we're recruiting locally. So now we generally try to recruit locally, and we've seen no reduction in quality whatsoever, just where we look.
And I understand from what you were saying as well that you get a very low turnover of staff because you've got those criteria in place, and the university is helping to make the people right for you. They've changed the course, haven't they?
Yes, they have, yes. We've built a relationship with the university, and it was very good. Malcolm Parry, who runs the research park, he runs all the research parks in the world, I think, doesn't he? He was extremely good, and he introduced us to the right tutors. So we met them, we pitched what our business does, and then he allowed us to actually talk to the students. So we talked to students about what we did and how business worked. And that was very interesting for us, and I think it was pretty interesting for them on how a real company worked. Because I remember when I did my degree, which was electronic engineering, I had absolutely no idea how business worked. And then when I finished my degree, you'd go into a room full of employers who were just desperate to offer you a job because that was the time. Yep. Now it is a little bit different. So we have a really good relationship with the university, with the tutors. They know us, we know them, and they have realise that they need to provide some certain skills that businesses like us use. So we use a programming language called C++. So they've changed their courses to add this as a module. Now we also sponsor the projects. So some of the projects that the students do for their final year, they now tailor that to be useful to us. And then they're entitled to the project award. So if we pick, I think we've 3 we're now picking, we're sponsoring. And if they win the top prize, then I think it's £500 that the top prize is, which is pretty good for them, and it's very good for us. We've now got, I think, 4 students who are with us. Some of them are interns, and then when they finish, they do their degree, they come back, and then they come back to us. And they're absolutely fantastic, and they've been the best employees that we've had. Really good.
Well, I know that you at Surrey Connects, you're very, very heavily into this apprenticeship, the
Very much
schemes,
so.
and to also the young employment, the youth employment schemes and
Very
all
much so.
that. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do at Surrey Connect.
Well, for us, it's about promoting apprenticeships. It's about promoting higher level skills in terms of university graduates. And most of all, it's about making sure that the providers out there have got exactly that flexibility that Tom's talked about. It's not just about a textbook, a menu approach that a university or college will take. The flexibility that they have these days to be able to respond to an employer's needs is actually quite fantastic. And again, that as an example is great. I've been working recently with both East Surrey College and also Guildford College about a foundation degree that they're putting together at the moment around web applications and writing the software. But not only from the point of view of the design side, but also the technical side as well, and the way those two come together. The key thing that they've approached us to help with is which of the companies out there who actually are going to be taking these students as they come out, and can we build in a 3-month sandwich course to them? The answer they'll come to me and say, do you think employers will want that? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
because
do you
it's
think
that two-way
companies are
process.
buying into these kind of schemes? I mean, are they hungry for these young people who come and work for them?
Most definitely, and especially with some of the financial incentives as well available for taking apprentices on at the moment. Surrey County Council are offering an enhanced package of, I think it's £750 a year on top of what the government are offering. And that's a real drive, a real encouragement for a company to take an apprentice on. And that apprenticeship then often leads to, a permanent role. It also gives a feeling of well-being and of self to that young person as well. That's really, really important. So for us, it's those skills across the whole board that we're trying to encourage companies to take advantage of. You constantly need to update your skills, as I'm sure Tom would acknowledge. The market doesn't change. The market is
The
constantly
market just
changing.
keeps growing, and we need the
Keeps
people
growing.
out there with the skills to actually fulfil
Very
it, I
much
would
so.
imagine.
One thing you do need, though, when you first take either an intern or an apprentice, it's difficult to know what to do with them, because you're normally employing full-time people who know what they're doing. So you get someone for a few months, and the first time you think, what do I do with them? Who looks after them? Who trains them? I don't want them sitting there doing nothing. Once you've been through that cycle once or twice, and you've got some procedures in place, and I think that's where Surrey Connects would be able to help, because they'd say, you need to be prepared before you get them what they're going to do.
Correct.
So that it's going to be benefit to them and benefit to you. Because there's no point just helping them, it's got to help you too, because you're a business, you have to make money. You're not there as a charity. So once you've been through that cycle a couple of times, it becomes easier. I mean, we even had 2 students from George Abbott School in Merrow this time who came for a week. And we've never had anybody that young coming before, and that was quite interesting because they had no concept of how a business worked at the beginning of the week.
They don't seem to be taught that, do they? They really are completely out of their sphere of comfort, aren't they? They just don't know.
Although I have just come from a meeting this afternoon where I've actually had employers and students, 14 to 16-year-olds, in the same room, and the students actually saying and asking business, can we come on work experience more regularly than just 1 week when we're 16? Can we come in several times? Can we actually experience a range of businesses? We've got the schools saying, we'd quite like business to come in and give us 3 hours. So we're actually starting to see some of that sea change. And for us as an organisation, it's to encourage that. It's for me to actually sit down with Tom and go, actually,
Yeah.
you're leading edge technology, but can you go in and say to a young man or a young woman, actually, if you're doing maths, if you're doing some technology activity, this is what it means in the real world. And it's bridging that gap.
And there is a real lack of that knowledge. We've seen that at the Youth Enterprise Awards.
Well, yes, both of us, yes.
I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll come back a little bit in just a few moments' time and talk a little bit more about that, the whole area of bringing employees in.
Okay.
Not just students, but also established people as well. The problems that can bring when it comes to growing your business, to make certain that you have the appropriate staff to do the appropriate job, to make certain that your business is successful. You're watching Business Connections Live. It is Business Connections Live number 9 with me, my guests, Mark Pearson, Chief Executive, Surrey Connects, and Tom Higgins, he's the CEO of Gold Eye. Fascinating. If you are in a situation at the moment where you are starting out a brand new business, maybe you've been in full-time employment, and all these other problems are coming on board now, the VAT, the tax, premises, broadband, all of that, and you're beginning to think that you're beginning to maybe find yourself sinking down a hole where you just can't get the answers. There are people out there that will help you. It may well be other CEOs and managers of other businesses, but it could well be organisations like Surrey Connects that are going to be there to dig you out of that hole and to help you out. Now, we're going to come back and talk to our two guests in just a few moments' time. But with a roundup of what's been happening in the news over the past 7 days, here's Linda Bazant.
Welcome to Business Connections Live News for Wednesday the 13th of November 2013. The UK's inflation rate, as measured by the Consumer Prices Index, fell to 2.2% in October from 2.7% the month before. The surprise fall saw CPI inflation drop to its lowest rate for more than a year and eases pressure on the Bank of England to raise interest rates. The figure was below forecasts of 2.5% and is the lowest since September 2012. A survey by the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development found most employers were planning to take on new staff in the coming weeks, but it found less appetite for hiring over the medium term. The survey, which included more than 1,000 employers, found that the majority of employers were planning to increase staffing levels in the fourth quarter of this year. The Business is Great Britain campaign has been kick-started by Business Secretary Vince Cable and Skills and Enterprise Minister Matthew Hancock. Designed to build confidence amongst small businesses, the initiative will be using case studies of companies which have been successful in building out our operations. Mr Cable has also announced a £45 million funding package for small businesses, the first funding allocation from the British Business Bank's investment programme. Measures to support SMEs will also include a new £1 million sector-specific mentoring scheme and a £10 million start-up fund to help entrepreneurial scientists get their businesses off the ground. A new business support website, greatbusiness.gov.uk, has been launched to help SMEs access services and products aimed at helping businesses grow. The Prime Minister, in his annual address to the Lord Mayor's banquet at the Guildhall in the City of London, said he wanted to forge a relationship for the long term that would open up markets for British firms while bringing more Chinese investment into the UK. Mr Cameron, who has already made one visit to China since becoming Prime Minister, said, "I will take senior British ministers as well as business leaders from every sector, large and small, to forge a relationship that will benefit both our countries and bring real rewards for our peoples." This year has been dubbed the Mobile Christmas, and with 48% growth in mobile shopping, retailers are increasingly targeting shoppers through digital devices. British retailers will spend nearly £400 million on advertising during the last 3 months of 2013, and consumer spending via mobiles and tablets is worth about nearly £8 billion a year, according to research from Verdict. Apple is rumoured to be working on curved screens for future versions of the iPhone, as well as sensors that can detect different levels of pressure. The curved models are set to have larger screen sizes of 4.7 inches and 5.5 inches, reports Bloomberg. It says a source familiar with the plans believes a release date in the second half of next year is likely.
Here we go.
If you have any views or comments on tonight's news items, please contact us on all social media platforms or email studio@businessconnectionslive.com.
You're watching Business Connections Live. I'm Steve Hyland. This is edition number 9. It's great to have your company with us this evening. On the programme tonight, I've got Mark Pearson, Chief Executive, Surrey Connects, and Tom Higgins, CEO from Gold Eye. It's been a strange old hour, actually, because from my point of view, it's just flown by. All of a sudden, we're 15 minutes away from the end of the programme, and there's still so much to talk about. I just said to the pair of you just then, really what we've got are 2 one-hour programmes here in their own right, talking about Surrey Connects and talking about what you've achieved with Gold Eye. I think it's probably wise to come back with you, Mark, and just be absolutely clear about what Surrey Connects is. I suppose we've made it sound like it's a bit like an advisory service where, you know, oh, I've got a problem, better go see Surrey Connects. And that really isn't your core business. While you're there to help,
Yes.
that isn't the way it works, is it?
It's not. I mean, a lot of what we do is to make sure that those organisations who are out there are actually delivering, that those networks that are out there are delivering, that actually when people do come to us or we hear about issues, that they can be solved. So, you know, one of the things, for example, at the moment is businesses are struggling in terms of borrowing money from banks. We all know that. You know,
we all know that.
Problem. So we've actually been doing some work behind the scenes with the likes of FSE Group, Finance South East Group, to truly understand that problem. We're actually lining some bankers up in a room next week. Next week. That's not the season, actually. It's not till January. But to actually say, come on, this is the demand. This is the scale of demand from businesses who want to grow. They need that access to finance.
Do you think they get it? Because, I mean, you're talking to them. Do you think the banks really get it? You're in a fortunate position with your business where it is nearly self-funding. Well, it is self-funding.
It is completely self-funded, yeah.
And so you don't have to worry about that. I mean, if you had to do a huge expansion, I would imagine you would have to go to a bank and you'd have to talk to them.
Yeah, we do. I mean, and we chose HSBC as our corporate bank because they were offering a deal where it's free banking when I started. But one thing I did actually with them, which was a bit different, and I didn't know I shouldn't be doing it, and other people weren't doing it, is I was really involved with the bank at the beginning, even though we borrowed nothing from them. I presented to them exactly what our business does in layman's terms, and they said, this is great. No one ever does this. They just open an account and we never hear from them. We understand what your business does. And I see them now, not so often, maybe every 6 months, and I see the account manager and I talk him through how our business is growing, and he really understands it. And now, if I want to borrow money, I'm in a much better situation because he understands what we do. And it's not such a flyer. And I think if you're starting a business now and you involve the bank from the beginning in just an education exercise, you're going to get something out of it because they see so many businesses and they're helpful, they're nice people.
Definitely.
And you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Again, it comes down to that communication, it comes down to that network. It's sharing your business and your passion with somebody else. And therefore, when you may need to speak to them, when you do need to speak to them, they're potentially going to be there to have a greater understanding. But equally, it's making sure that you've got all those elements in place, or you know the journey that you're on. So if you're putting your business plan together, for example, you may have a number of gaps, but actually people would probably rather you know that you're saying, well, I've got a gap here and I've got a gap here, and some of that advice and guidance may come forward. I was speaking with one of the regional managers from NatWest recently, who said we get firms and they've got the gaps, and I challenged them back. I said, so what do you do about that?
We tell them they've got the gaps.
We tell them they've got the gaps. I said, but surely you then can network them. And they went, well, yes. I said, well, that's a failure then. We need to plug that. And whether it's making sure that they're referring to accountants, to solicitors, maybe the Chamber of Commerce, maybe they've got an export issue, for example, they want to export. There's the experts there. So it's joining those dots up. It's making sure those connections are in place. And that to me that's why I get up in the morning. It's to make sure that people like Tom can actually, when some of that basic stuff needs to happen, that infrastructure is in place to do it.
It is this whole circle of information, isn't it? It's making certain that the individual parts are all talking to each other.
Yes.
And I suppose that's why you're there. You're the catalyst to make that communication happen, aren't you?
And sometimes you'll realise there is a breakdown, and so you can pull the people together and say, how do we actually solve this?
What do you think the big hole is then at the moment? What isn't working when you're standing back for a moment and you're saying to yourself, look, I'm Mark Pearson, taking my Surrey Connects hat off
Yeah.
for a moment, where do you see the issues?
I think the issue at the moment is the volume of information that's out there. The volume of information, and how does actually somebody make sense of that? How do they know to go for, product A over service B over supplier F and whatever? How do they actually know that the information that they're drawing in about new markets, about new suppliers, how do they know that's right? And often it's a case of just taking that step back. You don't actually often have to make that decision there and then. I think there's a huge amount of pressure at the moment that you've got to make that decision. Just take that, it could be just an hour.
If
And
you
just
were
sit
doing,
back.
if you were doing that and you were stepping back for a moment and you were looking at the business scene at the moment, what decisions do you think you would have done differently, or where do you see the big gaps, the big holes are?
I didn't join a support group like the Entrepreneur Circle early enough. I think the first thing I would do is join some form of support group. You know, you're paying £60 a month, which is so worthwhile for the advice you're getting, and there's so many people you can ask for things. And then when you get a bit bigger, you do something else like I did with Vistage. But being plugged into that group of experts is fantastic. And even CEOs of the major companies, they have mentors. They don't do it on their own. They have people that help them. They also have boards that we don't have in the same way. We might have a small senior management group or a small board, but generally we don't have a board of 10 people that we can get, like we can on these groups, where you get these fantastically expert people in all areas. So doing that, I would do that really early on, but I didn't know it existed. I didn't know I needed to even ask the question. So that
Didn't even know the question existed.
I didn't know. That's what I'd do. I think. Well, one thing, if I said I'd do it again, that's what I'd do earlier.
But you've raised an interesting point there, actually, about your board. Because often when you go into business for the first time and you've said, yes, we're going to become a limited company, and there's actually often only 2 people on the board. There's yourself and your wife, your partner, or your business partner. But there's a whole plethora of non-executive directors out there who can give advice. And often people will go, well, I don't want to let somebody else into the business. Well, you're not handing over shares. You're actually inviting them onto the board as a non-executive director to plug some of that advice.
Yeah.
And they often bring a perspective. They can sometimes bring a challenge. So why are we doing this? Why are we not doing that?
I mean, it's interesting when it
And
comes
there's
to
there's networks out there to help you do that.
But it is interesting when it comes to putting boards together, because you nearly have boards that you put together because they have the right profile across them, particularly in the broadcast industry. If you're putting a board together for maybe a radio station or a TV company and you want to impress the appropriate authorities, you'll have a Lord this on it and you'll have a so-and-so on it, and just to give the impression that you've got this complete rounded team that are going to bring the whole thing forward. And of course, you weren't in a position, or there wasn't a need for you to do that.
No, I was using friends as advisors, and that's just really important to ask people. I think people with an idea, an entrepreneur who wants to start a business, they may be sometimes worried that other people will shoot them down and say this is silly, and so they don't ask enough questions. And then you just got to be completely open. And if you see someone who's being successful, talk to them. I mean, one of the business books I read recently said, you know, if you talk to 10 really successful people, you'll learn some really successful things that they did that made them really successful. So why not copy it? And so
it's very true, isn't
absolutely,
it? If it works, why reinvent the wheel?
Correct.
Absolutely.
If someone has been through that pain and they're prepared to share that, and by and large people are,
they always want to talk about their business.
Exactly.
Always want to talk about it. I was at a trade show this week on Monday and Tuesday, and I was summoned up by the CEO, global CEO. He's a billionaire now, this guy, and he owns the company himself. And I think how many employees they've got now? 5,000 or 6,000. And he just wanted to talk about his business, and it was just like chatting with a friend.
Pleased with what he's achieved.
What he's achieved. I mean, we had a
company's
business to discuss what we could do together, but actually it was no different from talking about anything else. We talked about issues, all sorts of things. He had the same sort of issues, just on a bigger scale. But everyone likes talking about their business.
Sorry.
and the fabulous thing about Surrey is we've got an incredibly successful business community. One of our roles is to promote that business community, but we've got 60,000 enterprises. We've got 250 companies employing more than 250 people. So some of those corporate executives are here. They're already here in the county. So for a young business, look them up. you know,
Talk to them.
Talk to them. Go and see them, because they will, you know, they will respond to that, and plug into some of those business networks that actually you see the names on the list. It's a networking event. Go up and introduce yourself.
And what about people that are living outside of Surrey? Where should they be talking to? Who should they be talking to? Where should they be going?
I think you look at the traditional networks, so Federation of Small Business, the local Chamber of Commerce, professional organisations, you know, Institute of Directors, but also your trade bodies and trade magazines as well. There's a huge number of trade magazines out there. I know, Have I Got News For You feature a rogue trade magazine every week, but actually if that's what the area of market that you're in, that's fantastic. Seek out that information and ask the questions.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, it's very surprising. I just can't believe it, that the hour has truly just gone, whizzled by. But every week we ask our guests to look straight down the camera lens and to really summarise what they're all about. Give a little bit of advice to small growing businesses and large organisations, because we're never too big to actually learn something. So if that's all right with you, I'd like to invite you first of all, Mark.
Okay.
If you look straight down number 3, that's just sitting there, and just really the key things that are important to remember about Surrey Connects, but also how every business can benefit from the kind of advice that organisations like yours can give. The camera's yours.
Thank you very much. Surrey Connects at the end of the day is about creating the right conditions for your business to be able to grow into the future. We've got a very long-term vision that stretches out to 2030. But actually, how does that translate into your business that may be relatively young? Well, we're trying to unblock some of those things that potentially may be blocking you in the future. So we're making sure that the colleges and universities are providing the right skilled people for you. We're making sure that the investment is going in terms of things like superfast broadband. We're also challenging some of the investment that needs to be made right here and now in terms of road and rail connections. Surrey is a busy place, but that's particularly important. The way that we're doing that at the moment, we've just launched a new service called Invest in Surrey, which is an inward investment service to attract new companies to the county. We've also recently launched the Big Debate, which is around about thought leadership. And you may think, well, what's thought leadership? Well, for us, that's actually to make sure that the expertise that you've got as a business is actually fed into the greater policy system. So we're quite concerned at the moment about, have we got the right skills? What are the housing issues? How are people using town centres? It's those sort of things through the Big Debate that we're actually promoting at the moment. We're also looking at the future of business incubation, exactly what Tom's been talking about in terms of new startup space. We're also have created a new product, a new service called Digital Business Surrey, which is to make sure that you can actually take advantage of some of those networks that we've been talking about, specifically how you move your business and take advantage of technology. Those are the sort of things that we're doing for you, and that we've been able to share with some of those with you this evening.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. If you have a quick look at what I've got on my screen here, you can see if you go online to surreyconnects.com, we've got the whole Big Debate there, and you can go and you can find out more about what the guys are talking about. And you can see here it is very comprehensive as far as what you're covering, everything from aviation, broadband, energy, housing, skills, town centres, transport, everything is there. If you want to find out more about that, just simply go to the Surrey Connects website, and more will be explained there, and also it'll give you a bit of an indication, really a bit more of a background to what this business is all about. All right then, Tom, CEO of Goldeye. What would be the advice you'd give to small companies to get themselves from where they're starting from to where you are today? What would you say to them? Straight down one.
Right. Well, I could give you a lecture on low latency transaction processing, but I think I'll talk about how I constructed the business actually. So
well, maybe not tonight.
Maybe not tonight. I think the first thing is just believe in yourself. If you have an idea and you think it's something that people need, that you can sell, then have really believe in yourself in that one. Test your idea with other people. So ask all your friends, ask other people, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think this is something people could buy? And get them to be really honest rather than saying, yeah, that's really great. Get them to be really, really honest. You know, is this something that you would buy? And if they're completely honest with you and say, yes, it is, and you want to make a change of life, you want to be in control, you don't want to get on the train every morning and travel for hours and hours up to town and then with a rat race get back on again, and you think, I can do this myself, I can work locally, I can be in Surrey, I live in Surrey, I can work in Surrey, I can have a 5-minute commute if I want. I mean, I now take the children to school every day. I see them much more than I would have done before, and I have a much happier life. So believe in yourself, and then do a business plan. So is it actually going to make any money? Because it may be a great idea, but if it's not going to make any money, if it's supposed to make money, if it's not a charity, do a business plan that's realistic. And if that works, that's great. Work out how you're going to finance it. So in our case, we sold our house. We moved into a rented house, so we had enough money to live. My wife was extremely supportive, and she didn't mind doing this. Well, she didn't say she did. So we did this, and so we knew we could fund the business, and we knew how long we could run for. Personal networks are absolutely vital, absolutely vital. You won't believe how many people you've met who will be able to help you, and you just need to ask them. So you just need to do a lot of lunching, ring them up, they'll pay because they know that you're not working, and they'll take you out and they will advise you, and they'll say, I know someone who wants to buy this or buy that, and it will come together, and then your business can start to grow. PR was something we did really, really early, because it's important for your clients to think that you're something substantial. When you start, you generally have no products and you have no customers. So where do you start? No one will buy anything because you have nothing to sell. In software, that's a bit tricky because you've got to build something. So you start small, you get a first customer, you build something for them, and then you build and you build and you build and you build. And it grows in that way. So PR helps you look bigger than you are. And that helps you grow faster. So we employed a local PR agency, Wigwam, who we're still with, who are absolutely fantastic. And they are now the PR agency for 6 of our clients because they were so impressed with them. And this is just because they are a small local business who understands our needs, just as we are a local business understands our clients' needs. So PR, vital, gets you bigger, gets you out there, gets you in the right trade press. You know, we don't do adverts because we find that's not effective, but we do editorials, advertorials, and local trade shows, business trade shows. So PR do that. Get the right people in, use your mummy net. So when you're dropping the children off at school, talk to the mummies. I've found jobs for a few of my wife's friends who said, this is great, I love your idea. And they now work for some of my friends doing the same thing as in the mummy net network. We explored the graduate opportunity and it worked really well for us. It may not work for you, but explore that as well. It worked very well for us. And then just fantastic customer service. People are selling to people. It's always people on either side of the business. So if you do a fair job, if you are honest and decent and you'll always go that extra mile, they will always remember that. Other thing, probably one of the last things, differentiate yourself. Have some super technology, have a nice shirt, have nice glasses. They will remember you. When I go to a trade conference, a trade show, or I see a client, they say, oh, you're the person who wears the bright shirts. And they remember that. They absolutely remember that. It's not difficult to do. So differentiate yourselves and make yourself memorable.
Absolutely fantastic. Just a quick one. Yes, you were going to say?
It's the silver moon boots that you can't see.
You can't see that. They're under the table right now. If you want to find out a little bit more about Gold Eye, it's www.gold-eye.com. You can have a quick look at the site. If you just have a quick look at the website that we've got sitting here, and you can find out more information about their business and also a little bit more as well about Tom. It's all sitting there, a fantastic site and really very informative. Gentlemen, can I thank you very much indeed. It's been an absolutely fascinating evening. It's taught me and it's told me a lot about what Surrey Connects does. It's been absolutely inspirational. The glasses, by the way, if you turn them the other way around, they've actually got silver on the inside, so it is quite something. The technology is fantastic. But Tom, thank you very much indeed for coming in today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
As well, Mark, for your time this evening. And we're back again next week for another edition of Business Connections Live. And I hope you've enjoyed tonight's programme. I think the thing that's coming up, it's all about networking. It's all about getting out there. It's all about talking to different people. There are people out there that have had the same problems as you've had when it comes to starting your particular business. And you can find those people, talk to them because they'll tell you how to circumnavigate some of the issues that you actually have. And it sounds like at some stage we're going to have to get Nigel Botterill on the programme from the Entrepreneur Circle. We're looking forward to that. If you are watching, Nigel, expect a phone call tomorrow. But from all the team here, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Wednesday night at 7. From me, Steve Harlan. Bye for now. Bye-bye.